We'll try that one again, except not muted this time. You can say we're definitely back live, aren't we? Definitely back live. Yes, welcome along to the West Yorkshire Football Show. I'm Stephen Browne, and joining me as ever is Jason Boocker. It was nice last week when we could hit the delete and re-record, wasn't it? That was quite useful there. But thank you for joining us. We are live streaming across YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch. Do get involved. We're just going to have a little Leeds United catch up, lots to talk about, lots happening, transfer rumours, cash boosts, all sorts happening. So I'm looking forward to just having a good old chinwag all about Leeds United. So yeah, get your comments in if there's anything you'd like to add, get liking the video, and of course, get subscribed to the channel as well. Well, Jason, it's a few weeks. It feels like kind of forever now since the season ended. First of all, how have you been getting your football fix, by the way? What have you been doing to kind of plug that gap of Leeds United football matches?
Yeah, I am desperately missing the games already. I can't lie. Like the excitement of watching Leeds and enjoying watching us win. To be fair, we have had a bit of football though, haven't we? We have had a little bit to get us teeth stuck into. I enjoyed watching the Premier League at the weekend. I've not watched much of the Premier League this season, like bits and bats, odd bit of match of the day and whatnot, highlights here and there. But because I've been so engrossed in the Championship this year, I've not really bothered so much. But so yeah, the weekend I enjoyed the Newcastle Arsenal game. What else did I watch during the weekend? I did watch some on Saturday. I've watched the
Palace FA Cup, obviously.
Palace FA Cup, yeah, watched that, and I've watched pretty much all of the playoffs. Yeah, it was amazing, wasn't it? It were nice to see. They did a number on them, didn't they? To be fair, they deserved it, I thought, and they had the moment of saving the penalty. It was a penalty. They got through that. Dean Henderson were brilliant. That's what you need, and to be fair, City had the odd couple of moments, but I thought Palace were good value for it in terms of the way that they're set up. So
yeah, well, kind of like what you said in the group as well. It's like you would love to see it as a Leeds fan at some point in your lifetime supporting the club. You'd love to see them actually go and do it, and that's exactly how I felt. And watching it kind of gives you hope because we got so used year in year out. It's like Liverpool, Man United, Man City, kind of, and Chelsea and Arsenal occasionally sharing the domestic trophies. Yeah. And you just got programmed into, that one of those teams is going to do it every time. And then this year, we've seen completely different. Newcastle, Crystal Palace winning it. And especially the Palace one, it's just phenomenal to see the fans at the end. I mean, that's what it's about, is it? They never won a major trophy before.
First in their history. I mean,
can you imagine if you're like a 60-year-old Crystal Palace fan? You go to every game, die hard, you've been up and down, hard yards when they were in the Championship, and then to watch them win at Wembley, I mean, against, the dominant team of the last decade. I mean, phenomenal, isn't it? Absolutely phenomenal. Yeah, as Leeds fans, hopefully one day we'll get to experience that.
Yeah, I mean, it led on to some massive arguments and debates in the group, didn't it, this week? As to where the passion,
well clear of.
As to where shows most passion and up and down the pyramid. And I was like, you're saying this a day after Crystal Palace have just achieved what they've achieved, and we're seeing that as a Premier League team. It's a nonsense non-start today because I think, obviously, if you're one of the big teams that are used to winning things, then fine. But I bet there's a lot of Manchester City fans that still enjoy the Premier League wins and the Champions League victories and all as much as they did the first. That their relative success is actually real small in terms of the time frame that they've had this success over the last few years. In the grand scheme of things, is really, really small period of time. So, I just don't.
It's expectations, isn't it, though, as well? Yeah. It's like, if you're Man City and you've won domestic, trebles even, a couple of years ago, you've won league titles and you're going to have that bit of entitlement. And, yes, maybe you're not going to celebrate it, 100% like the first one. That's just human nature. We take it for granted. Look at Man United fans now. In the 90s, 2000s, it was like, another Premier League. They will give anything to challenge again. And if they ever get back to that, their fans will go bloody nuts. And that's, and I think
perspective
any level.
Yeah, perspective makes a massive difference as well. Teams that are recently relegated from a division are expected to then win the division again or get promoted again. And that often does happen. So, they're not going to celebrate the second promotion as much as they did the 1-2 seasons before, let's say, for example. For certain clubs, getting out of League One it's their ceiling. That's not to be disrespectful. It's just the truth.
Yeah.
You know, for Oxford, as an example, to find themselves in the Championship, that's a massive, massive deal. It don't mean that they didn't celebrate winning promotion out of League Two.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
It's a non-starter kind of thing. Like, I think you have passionate fan bases, less passionate fan bases. I don't think it matters where in the pyramid you are. Like, success is success, and you should enjoy it as a fan as much as you possibly can. And, you know, Crystal Palace were a prime example of that. We've seen it with Wigan, we've seen it with Portsmouth, we've seen it with Birmingham. You know, these clubs are all winning domestic trophies over the last few years. And, you know, football's so what's the word? It comes and goes so quick. You know, all them I just mentioned there, they've all suffered really bad times and relegations. Two of them, three, all of them have ended up in League One and below. So, you know, it's pretty crazy, really, isn't it? So, yeah, I just think you can't take anything for granted. And good on Palace. But, yeah, to come back to your actual original question, watched all the playoffs, absolutely loved watching the playoffs, being on this side of the line of watching.
No, it's great. What a feeling.
Yeah, I mean, Sheffield United obviously kind of made easy work of their task, which were a shame, if I'm honest. Kind of that they would struggle. Sunderland did it in dramatic fashion, and you know, at the end of the day, we've got a final of third versus fourth, which some would argue is the fairest solution to the playoffs. I do think that over the season, them two were the two next best sides behind us and Burnley. And yeah, may the best team win. Hope Sunderland do it.
Yeah, I've got to say, definitely. I've got a sneaking suspicion they're going to do it.
I feel like they might as well.
I just really feel like they're going to nick it, or they're going to do it, because they weren't obviously lambasted by the way they finished the season, and people were saying you're not just going to be able to turn this back on, you know, at the press of a button. But they've managed to get through that playoff against Coventry, obviously, you know, Lampard's Coventry, who, you know, have been really, really good under him, and they've managed to do it.
I do think Coventry were really unlucky over the two legs.
Yeah, they were.
Like, you know, they made a massive mistake at the end of the first leg, which gives Sunderland the win on the
We've been there as well, haven't we, Jay?
The
derby game, obviously.
And Van Uwijk was brilliant throughout the two legs. I mean, he really didn't deserve to be on the losing side, really. You know, they were by far the better team. They had so many chances. At the end of the 90 minutes, they missed an absolute sitter in the second leg. Hadji Wright, he just has to stick his header on target, and it's a goal, and he gets it completely wrong. And yeah, I just think it's they were the better of the two teams, without a doubt, for the players. And that is probably the one thing that would sway me back towards Sheffield United, is that Sunderland are still kind of stuck in a bit of treacle. But I don't know. There's something about them, the way that they defend, and I can just imagine that they're going to be a bit stinky on that day. And I think it'll be 1-0 either way. I think it's something like 75% of playoff finals finish 1-0, and this game feels like a 1-0 either way. But yeah, like I said, I'm just going to enjoy watching it because I don't have to stress.
Absolutely amazing feeling. I mean, obviously 12 months ago, you and I kind of got tickets for the playoff final. We were bombing down there, and it's that. To be on the wrong side of it is absolutely crushing, and it's going to feel so nice just sat back, relaxed, watching it, knowing we've already booked our place at the top table and we can just enjoy it for what it is.
100%. I mean, talking about playoff records, we kind of touched on this yesterday on the roundtable show. You know, Sheffield United, they've lost 9 consecutive playoff finals. They've never won one. And if they lose at the weekend, they'll have lost 10 straight. And Sunderland, they've lost 7 of 8 as well. So, like, these two have got, you know, the perennial terrible playoff finalists, and we think that we've had it bad in losing 4. You know, Sheffield United at 9 is pretty insane, really. So yeah,
that is unreal. That's a hell of a stat, isn't it? So you've got to think that they're just like pretty miserable records. So it'll be fascinating to see who comes out on top with that. Top Banana, evening all. How we doing, mate? Hope you're well. Tom, evening. Think I read earlier the 120 million is also for redevelopment of the stadium, not just transfers. Yes, we will get into that. But Jay, I mean, how are you feeling then? You know, it's kind of pre-season. Well, not pre-season, getting ahead of myself there, but it's the end of the domestic season's kind of happening. You know, we've just had the FA Cup, playoffs are coming up. We've got the European competitions finishing up. Lots of rumours swirling around about things, but kind of where's your kind of mood at with everything? I'm enjoying it. I'm kind of really enjoying kind of sitting back and kind of, wondering what we're going to do, who we're going to sign. It's just a good feeling. It's exactly where we wanted to be at this stage. And there's a couple of things I'm going to get into later in the show as well. A couple of things that may play heavily in favour for a potential survival for Leeds United as well. But where are you at with it at the moment? Are you just kind of in that kind of relaxed, kind of enjoying it mode at the moment?
Yeah, I mean, we've got nothing to stress about, have we? All that's coming in certainly the next few months is positivity. We've got pre-season to look forward to, the trip to Sweden to play them. We're going to keep on seeing links and rumours, and instead of us being linked to Championship, potential players that you don't really always know so much about, we're linked to Premier League players. And we can have the debate around whether signing the likes of James Milner is productive for a Premier League squad as opposed to signing, no disrespect, Joshua Guilavogui or another Championship star. Should we sign Ashley Barnes to fill a spot on the bench for the what I mean? Like we're not in that.
It says here Ryan Kent days.
Yeah.
I mean, how many years? Jesus.
It won't be long before Ryan Kent's linked again. We can't get away from that regardless of division. So I'm just excited, mate. And the news that keeps on coming out, the money that's going to be involved. I know we're going to get into it in more detail, but it all sounds super positive. I think it puts us in a real strong position. And what is to be stressed about? Once the first game kicks off, and look, we could be in a situation where we lose to Liverpool on the opening day 4-0, and everybody's freaking out about Daniel Farke and the players that we've signed and all the rest of it. Until that point, I am not having a negative connotation brought to my door with regards to Leeds United, because we just enjoyed a brilliant season. We had the moments of stress, and now we get to enjoy the fruits of the labour, and that looks like a positive transfer window full of exciting incomings, shopping in a completely different market, and we get to test ourselves against the best of the best next season. So I saw a point get mentioned earlier on another stream that I thought was really key. Next season, we're going to have a lot of the Premier League playing in Europe. One of the things
I was going to raise.
Sorry, I kind of jumped ahead of that.
No. It could be absolutely massive because Crystal Palace, how they're going to react to that. Nottingham Forest, how they're going to react to that, and that. There's a couple of things that happen in that kind of way where you just wonder if it's kind of destined to be that we'll actually, break that trend that's happened the last couple of seasons and stay up. I think that could be huge because the drain that puts on your team and your resources is absolutely huge. And, what is it? Potentially 10 teams?
Yeah.
It's mental.
It's half the league. It's pretty nuts, really.
That's mental.
And it gives you opportunities to take points.
Yeah.
And sometimes you need a little bit of luck. There's not a lot made about this, but playing certain teams at certain times of the season and certain times of the schedules can make the difference between a team staying up and going down, or going up and or not going up. I think hopefully we can fall on the right side of that. It's not a case that Crystal Palace, as an example, will go down on the back of playing in Europe. They might, but it might not be. But hopefully we might, we might play them on a Saturday after they've played in Europe on the Thursday or the Wednesday. You know what I mean? Them moments make the difference, and we have to make sure that we are best placed as possible to be ready for that as we possibly can be. But I definitely do think it's going to make a difference.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. When I think ahead to those games, I think you're absolutely right. When it all kicks off, it's a bit of PTSD coming in from the Premier League campaign. It's weird because, the relegation campaign, I've got so many of those games burnt into my memory for better or for worse. I think it's one of them is because that's around the time we started streaming. So it's kind of, we, bookmarked each game with how awful it was. So it's I'm hoping we have a good start because, like you say, if we don't, it could be freak out time. But we're not there. We're fine. It's all positive at the moment. Skip, some fans really need to lower their expectations on who we may get. Some of the rumours and comments who we should try and get her in saying, yes, well, we're going to get to the transfer side of it a little bit.
Couldn't agree more with that.
100%. Absolutely 100%. But let's kind of deal with the news that came out of the club last night. reported by Beren Cross in The Athletic that Leeds United's owners will issue around 120 million worth of new shares in the club ahead of their return to the Premier League. Investors have been told the 9-figure influx will be put towards Ellen Road's redevelopment and this summer's transfer window. Now, that's one of those where, when I saw that come through, Beren Cross tweets 120 million, you're just kind of going, yes! Now, because we talked a little bit before last week, in fact, about the PSR limitations and how it kind of just puts a little dampener. It's kind of like you want to enjoy this feeling of, we've got money to spend, Premier League money to spend, but then there's a little asterisk that's like, oh, yeah, but if you do it too much, don't enjoy it, you might not have as much to spend as you want. Now, I don't know the ins and outs of this. I don't know how it relates to PSR. Does that mean it kind of means they can spend more? Or, I don't know what it means, but again, it shows you what the 49ers are about in terms of creating this cash for the club. We saw in the books last year, over 100 million they've put in. I don't think anybody could turn around and say they're not trying to move this project forward. I mean, for me, I've said it all, for a long time since they took over. They haven't really put a foot wrong for me. They really haven't. And this again is really trying to maximise, just as Parag Marathi said, trying to maximise what this club can do in the summer transfer window. And, obviously we've got ground redevelopment as well, but the recruitment, as we've said many times, is going to determine everything. So, I mean, great news, right, Jason? It's certainly going to help anyway, put it that way.
I mean, it's brilliant. It's exactly what we needed to hear, like you say, on the back of this kind of negative connotation around getting into the Premier League is this PSR cap, and we all have to become accountants overnight to understand what we can do and not do. And I couldn't agree with you more. The title is very clear that it's to do with ground redevelopment and transfers. It's all about how you can show your value as a club. You can spend a percentage of what your incomings are within a set period of time. I say I'm not an accountant, I don't fully understand it, but that's the long and short of it. And the facts are is we've generated £120 million worth more of funds towards the running of the club, of which you can then use a percentage of that towards transfer fees. So it cannot be a bad thing. And now the total it looks in terms of what we could potentially spend on transfers is going towards 200 million. That's roughly in and around the ballpark. 175 to 200 million is what I understand. And that doesn't factor in any player sales that we might do between now and the start of the season or the end of the window.
That's crazy. That's a crazy one.
The crazy thing is, though, Brian, it is, but the real crazy thing is that is pretty much what we need to compete. And I'm only talking about finishing 17th here. That is where we're at now. Hopefully we're not, it's not going to be dice of death kind of stage and we can be comfortable. But the first port of call is to get to in and around 40 points and finish 17th. And we do need quite a bit of work to just do that. So I couldn't be happier. It's exactly what we needed to hear.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you go back to mine and Jason's squad review video, we literally had, I think, 5 starters as maximum.
Yeah.
So you're talking 6 players to come in. We don't know what's happening with Byram, Firpo yet. There's a hell of a lot of work to do because, we can't trick ourselves and think, the majority of this squad would be enough in the Premier League. It just simply wouldn't be. And we've had enough evidence from previous seasons that jump is huge. So you're absolutely right. We've got to get in there and get the business done. A couple of comments here. Tom, do the players' wages affect PSR or is it just transfer fees? As far as I'm aware, everything, because it's what you're spending. So it's
definitely
amortization and all that kind of stuff.
It's definitely the full lot, but it gets factored into as part of the contract. So when and this is why we saw Chelsea doing all them imaginative 8-year deals, amortization and all the rest of that, the transfer fee, but also the cost of that contract over that period of time. So if the contract over 8 years costs 20 million, that's factored into the fee and the PSR spending limit. So that's my understanding of it anyway, which is, again, why we need to be playing smart when it comes to the likes of Sam Byram. You know, like a lot of people will scoff at keeping him and around, but at 10 grand a week to have a homegrown player that will be happy not even making the squad to make up the numbers for when we have injuries and suspensions and can come in and play a role off the bench at his age, with his experience and everything that comes with it, it's why it makes a lot of sense. You know, it makes a lot of sense. Because otherwise what you have to do is you have to replace him with 40 grand a week fullback that's going to sit on the bench every week. And you can't, like, you have to do some of this, unfortunately.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And Byron, because I said in the video, I think I chose get rid, but if only for the homegrown element might be enough actually to warrant 10 grand a week or something to sit in the squad, because, you know, it ticks that box and then it's like, okay, we can go out and get this player, that player. We don't have to worry about meeting that quota, you know, so it might even just be worth it from that point of view alone.
It's 100%, you know, massively vital that we don't just, as Lou put it earlier in the group, become a dad's army of players and cast-offs that nobody else wants. And I get that, you know, because I was firing out different names earlier. We were having a bit of a chat about it, and that's massive too. We have to go and spend in the right areas on the right players in the right positions to make sure we're getting the quality that we need in addition to some of these players. But that's why, again, like if we're talking, and again, I'm jumping about a bit, if we're talking about the likes of James Milner, who would make so much sense. You know, we have so little experience within this squad. Again, he's going to be happy playing a little bit of a bit part role off the bench, can play in a number of positions to cover, you know, the potential issues that we might have. Homegrown player, like no transfer fee involved in terms of them bringing him in, so we don't have to spend part of the PSR budget on that player, you know, that's going to make up that part of the squad. So yeah, we've got to play smart in this window, in and amongst spending, hopefully, you know, nicer. I can't wait until we spend 20 million quid on an exciting signing. I'm gassed for that, but I understand the logic that we have to do a bit of both. You know, it can't just all be massive transfer fees, because otherwise we're going to find ourselves in PSR hot water. You know, they'll love to throw the book at Leeds United and give us 10 points when, you know, previously they gave Forest 2 or Everton 3 or whatever. So yeah,
absolutely, yeah. No, we don't want to open ourselves up to that. Swamp Dog, thanks for your comment. If it's 150 million now with that extra cash input, how many Altanakas esque players will be incoming? That's a fascinating question, because, you know, we look at the transfers and we're all guilty of it at some points, looking at the fee and thinking that's going to determine the quality of the player or how they're going to adapt and everything coming into the team. I think, you know, you look at Tanaka's fee, I mean, you won't find a better value than that across European football. I mean, it was just absolutely phenomenal. And, you know, that's a spot on comment. And it's going to be interesting to know how many of those have we got up as sleeves, you know. And I think, you know, if we end up signing a player for, you know, 8 million or something, you know, fans don't need to kind of freak out, because the quality of that player could be so outstanding and unknown in a way that it could really benefit us. But it's going to be fascinating to see where they're pitching that level, because it's almost, you know, when you've got that money to spend, you end up kind of spending more than you need to or you should. You know, it's going to be interesting to balance that. But I get the feeling with how data run they are and how, you know, successful they've been so far, I would back them to get it right. And we may see some really cheap deals, but hopefully they'll be as effective as Tanaka, if anything.
Yeah, I think it's a great point. We kind of touched on it again yesterday, in that I think some of the signings that we will make will come a little bit out of left field, and we won't know much about them. I'm looking at like the Belgian leagues or the Croatian league, you know, these kind of maybe a bit obscure leagues where they have to take a little bit of a data run chance on some of them and give them an opportunity. Because the problem is if you sign a ready-made Premier League player, that comes with an increase of the transfer fee straight off the bat, because you know you're buying ready-made Premier League player. You know, Manor Solomon's going to fall into that kind of category a little bit if and when that deal gets over the line. We will pay more for the quality of Manor Solomon because we know he can do it at Premier League level already. He's already somewhat Premier League proven. Whereas if we went and got somebody from the continent that has potentially got the same skill set as Manor Solomon, probably cost £5 to £10 million less, but then you're going to run the risk that he can't do it over here. So it's a real fine balance. I think, again, you'll see a bit of both. I think you will see a little bit of both with this. I don't imagine that there'll be that many big fees for players that are playing in the Premier League right this second. I don't think there'll be much of that. I think you'll be looking at the different pool of players, your free transfers, your loans, your opportunities. Take James McAtee as an example. 1 year left on his deal. He's not proven at Premier League level, but his future potential ceiling is so high that it'd be worth spending 10, 15 million quid on him with 1 year left to go, potentially. You know what I mean? So I think it's going to be a real interesting strategy. But you're absolutely spot on when it comes to the transfer fee not dictating anything. We don't need to be getting down this rabbit hole again of just thinking transfer fee equals good player. I love Dan James now, but we spent 25 million quid on Dan James when he wasn't really the ready-made Premier League player that we needed. Yet we spent 16, 17 million quid on Rafinha, who ended up being one of the best players that we've seen over the last, ever. Arguably, Rafinha is the best player that's ever played in the Leeds shirt. He's on the brinks of winning a Ballon d'Or. So, and yet we paid 7-8 million quid less for him than we did for Dan James. So, yeah, it's we paid less for Rafinha than we did for Brendan Aronson. You know what I mean? So it means nothing, doesn't it? It means literally zero, zilch. So, it's all about the recruitment. And, there's a lot to be said as well, Brownie, about the player being the right fit for a club. Diego Llorente, Robin Koch as an example, Mark Roca, are three that come straight off the top of my head who have all gone on to play really well for their respective clubs where they've then gone. Robin Koch's on the verge of getting a move to Borussia Dortmund. Mark Roca's on the verge of getting back in the Spain squad. Diego Llorente has gone on and had a really good season this season again. Yeah. So it's not that these are bad players, but they were bad fits for Leeds United and the club and the squad and the management and the players at the time. The system in which we went on to play and all the rest of it. So, it's a real fine balance in making sure that you get that right. Jadon Sancho is another one that just instantly comes to my head. Great at Dortmund. Comes over to Manchester United for an insane amount of money. It's terrible. Awful fit. It's just an awful fit. So, it's an interesting debate.
Absolutely. Interesting article in the YEP as well. And it's going through kind of publicly known the net worth of the Leeds investment team with the 49ers. But one stat I got from there, the combined net worth of the 49ers enterprises and those involved, it's 7.21 billion. And we've also got, obviously, as a huge sponsor and a minority owner, Red Bull, and their co-owners' net worth is 72 billion.
All right, I wouldn't mind being a pound behind them.
Oh, I know. Can you imagine? I'll be able to upgrade my camera and everything. And everything. It'll be. I mean, it might not be a good thing, but we'll do it if somebody wants to invest. So yeah, I mean, it's all there for us. Just get to a couple of comments. By the way, guys, if you can smash a like on the video as well, that's much appreciated. Skip 100% agree, Jay. The Premier League teams are much stronger in the 2 years since we were last in the Premier League. It's going to be tough. Look at Everton, Palace. And Tom, some fans just seem to expect us to be getting rid of 10 to 15 players and bringing in the same amount. We need bench players. Yeah. Just a couple of things. Obviously, I wanted to get your take on it as well. We had the retained list, and Guilavogui is not going to be retained. He is exited. I can't think of a player that's probably played as little but had such an unbelievable impact. I mean, you saw it on social media as well. All the players tagging him and thanking him. They love him. There's no doubt about it, Jason, that this guy has been a hugely positive influence. Limited minutes on the pitch, not kind of, inspiring stuff on the pitch, but off the pitch, an amazing character. And, you could potentially argue a little bit of a void there and something we're going to have to look at over the summer. But, I mean, you've seen it from the players, haven't you, how much he meant and what an impact he had there. And I think he has the goodwill of just about every Leeds United fan going, I think.
Yeah, I did give him a little bit of a memoir yesterday. Yeah. But I couldn't agree with you more. And I think his role will go undervalued as time goes on. We'll probably forget the role that he played. But I actually think it was vital in a non-essential way, if that makes sense. Like, he's obviously not having the impact that Ethan Ampadu has on the pitch or Dan James has on the pitch. But in terms of what he gave that group And, you know, the players clearly thought a lot of him. And I said yesterday, you know, in the moments where there was a bit of a wobble, you can imagine that Joshua Guilavogui was the player that they looked to for a little bit of reassurance and confidence and calm, you know, and that top level experience, the caps that he made for France and the playing in Europe and the top leagues for years. And not just that, but he clearly had a bit of an infectious character and personality.
Yeah.
It makes people happy, and it makes it sound like we need a cheerleader around, but it takes all sorts of different things to make a fantastic squad.
Yeah.
You know, and that's what he was. And you know, I don't think it can be stated enough, mate. He came in and filled a void in the squad in terms of a playing situation when we really needed it. I think it said a lot about him that he was happy to come over and play that role at this stage in his career. And yeah, he will leave Leeds with a real fondness, I think, from the fans, and a bit, like I said, a bit of a cult hero status. He broke a couple of really weird records that we'll never see beaten again, I think. You know, 9 straight victories when he appeared at Ellen Road. It'll unlikely be beaten ever again. And 15 straight in total for Leeds United from his debut, which is, again, crazy, really. Yeah. So, yeah, I know he had a bit of a shocker at centre-back.
A few of them did, though, to be fair, didn't they?
Yeah, they did. But when he came off the bench, in midfield, for the times that he played, he always looked reassured. He always seemed to keep us calm. And Daniel Farke played him. He didn't just bring him on when we were 3-0 up. He brought him on when we were 2-1 up or 1-0 up, and we needed to see a game out. And yeah, he played his part, mate. He absolutely played his part.
He strikes me as one of those guys as well, because I can imagine a dressing room for a football club can very easily get toxic, or can very easily, if a player's not playing that much, let's, you know, say Ramazani or Nonto, not playing that much, they expect to be playing, they've been told to be played, but it's not happening. You can very easily imagine that kind of growing, that seed of negativity I can imagine amongst young men playing in a team can spread like wildfire to suddenly, you know, all the players that aren't playing. We've heard, look, I mean, you know, this happens all the time at football clubs. I mean, it happens in workplaces. I mean, I'm sure we've all worked in an office or wherever we've worked where that negativity, you know, and it starts and it builds and it builds and it builds. And all of a sudden you've got a low morale in the team. It's just like nobody can get out of it, where I feel like Guilavogui he probably wouldn't let people talk like that. You can almost imagine, you know, and would bring people together.
I can imagine he's a manager's dream. I bet Daniel Farke absolutely loved him. But yeah, you're right. Like, you know, having these characters within the dressing room that will carry your message when you're not there. Your eyes and ears are not there. He will have done that. He will have been 100% always not like, no, we're not saying that we're not behaving like that. Like, I know exactly what you're talking about. I mean, I've seen it in dressing rooms at like it's the pub level. Like, you know what I mean? Like, and it can destroy destroy morale even at that level. So, you know, if you think about kids' football teams when they start going off the rails, like I've seen that happen as well. So yeah, absolutely will happen at a professional level where there's a lot of egos and a lot of adrenaline, and you know, hot-headedness will be flying around all over the place, especially when you're under pressure. So yeah, like I keep saying, I don't think you can understate his importance.
Do you know, it's just made me get into another train of thought. Do you think this has impacted like relegation candidates as well? You know, you imagine like, you know, Southampton or Ipswich, and you know, you're losing week in, week out. But I mean, especially Ipswich, who for me, for half a season were competitive in games, but it, you know, maybe, you know, it didn't quite break for them in this moment or that moment. But then by the end of the season, they look rubbish. And it's like that negativity, that kind of thing, it must be, you know, I wonder if it's almost like, because this narrative around, you know, 3 promote teams going down, I feel like those teams haven't done enough to challenge that. You know, they haven't done enough to go, no, we're not going to just accept that. You know, I mean, stupidity from managers playing systems where you're just going to get absolutely humped doesn't help, you know, and stuff like that, you know, and hopefully, you know, when we go into the Premier League, if it's a rough start, that's where you need that strong mentality, don't you? That's where you need those type of players.
100% it plays a part. I mean, if you have a look at some of the teams that have gone down over the years, and you start kind of factoring in what morale or mentality has done, to potentially see the team in the position that they're in. I think like Newcastle, when Newcastle went down as an example, like that Newcastle team should never have gone down. No. Never, ever, ever. You could argue the Leeds team that got relegated all the way went back in 2004 shouldn't have gone down. There were a lot of players within that team that were more than good enough to be Premier League players, and they went on to play more Premier League football thereafter. The problem is that the backdrop of the club, the money problems, they were all pulling different directions.
Yeah. I remember at the time it was like, no, this is a narrative of Leeds falling apart and going down. It's like, can we snap out of this? Like, we've got a match to go out there and win. Can we do this? But I'm sure in the player's head, it's like, oh, I'm going to move to so-and-so. I'm going to get a move here. And, all that crap.
Yeah. There's a bit of that. And there's also a bit of nerves and anxiety and stress and all that kind of stuff. And like I say, once you start breaking out some of them players that were leaders within that change rate. I've listened to countless interviews from some of the players that were in and around them teams at the time. And they all say the same things. Like there was a toxicity that was going on in and around the dressing room at the time. That bubble that we'd lived in a couple of years prior that had got to the Champions League semi-final had gone. That feeling had gone. But you look at that team, we still had bags of talent. Viduka and Smith was still up front in that team. Yeah. Like as much as the money problem, Don Matteo was in that team, David Bayer was in that team, Lucas Radebe was in that team. It's just countless. Gary Kelly, Ian Hart were in that team. Like injuries and stuff to probably key players at the time, made a big part of it. But yeah, you can't underestimate the dangers of the mentality going the wrong way. And again, I think it's why it's so important that Daniel Farke has been kept on. There's a huge momentum gather that can happen in and amongst the squad that is left, the core, him, and then the right additions with the right mentality that come in. Like that makes them. Look at the fact that the Bielsa team that finished 9th, that team had no right to finish 9th really, but the momentum carried it through to that. You talk about Ipswich not competing in the way that they should have done maybe this season. I think we were a prime example of what you can achieve if you've got everything right in place. Kieran McKenna, it might have just come too soon for him. The players that needed to step up just didn't. The recruitment, I made the point, I think a couple of weeks ago about Calvin Phillips. They put a lot of eggs in the basket of Calvin Phillips being their kind of marquee star loan signing, and he's not played. I mean, he's been behind Sam Morsey all season. That, you have to get that decision right, because otherwise it's not going to happen. So yeah, I don't think too much can be made of the last 2 seasons. I've talked about this a lot. Yeah, they are not the barometer that I am choosing to be set by. Like if we all go down again this season, fine, I will wrong, but I don't think that'll happen. I think Burnley and Leeds will be really, really competitive. We might both still go down. We might do. But I think one of us will stay up. I think it'll be us. But even if all 3 of us go down, you are not going to see a situation where the relegation battle was done in January. I do not believe that. I do not believe it.
No, I don't either. I don't. Enzio, thanks for your comment, mate. Yeah, that's spot on, Jay. I remember us going down in 82 and that team should have stayed up, but everything was going wrong at the same time. Our best players getting old and Tony, Curry leaving. Yeah, I mean...
This is another reason... Sorry to just cut you off. No. This is another reason why I don't subscribe to the idea that Manchester United can't get relegated. Like this exact conversation is exactly why I think they can go down, because the feeling around that club, the terrible recruitment, it's a cesspit of mess right now. The management and none of it's pulling in the right direction. And at the end of the day, it doesn't matter about your history. It doesn't matter how many fans you've got in your big fancy stadium. When you have to go out onto the pitch and win 3 points and you can't do it because you don't have the players, either the capabilities or the leaders to pull you over the line, this is what happens. And that is why you will see teams that shouldn't stay up. West Brom, I think of the miraculous season where they turned it around from being bottom and said, if you get the chemistry mix right and the manager's direction and the tactics and all of it kind of goes in the right direction, you can make mad things happen. Burnley stayed up for years and years and years when they shouldn't under Sean Dyche, because the chemistry was just right. They nailed what they could do. They got the maximum, didn't they, for years out of what they had. And that's how that happened. Eventually it caved in and, eventually you're going to get caught out by quality. You can't rely on that forever. But ultimately you can do that. And that is why I don't subscribe to it at all. I think I think they're in a whole world of hurt, me. I really, really do. I watched them again Friday night. They're just
awful.
They're so bad. They are so bad.
Yeah, and I don't get this thing of like, Amorim coming in. He's going to play this formation, and he's going to do it regardless of if he's got the personnel. So what happens? You lose. How many games they've lost? It's madness to me. It's just madness. Yeah. It's like work with the players you got, and maybe when you get your players in, be sorted out. I hope they're an absolute basket case. Them getting relegated would be chef's kiss, absolutely perfect. I would absolutely love it. Just one interesting thing I thought about this the other day is our expectations or our kind of hopes, everything. When we came up under Bielsa, I mean, I'm sure at the time I was kind of like, I wonder how much we're going to spend and stuff. But I don't know. I didn't have the same kind of awareness of all this kind of side of it a little bit. It was like, I don't know. It's weird. It just felt that it was like, I don't know if I thought, oh yeah, we'll be fine. I definitely didn't. I was definitely like, still worried until like February or something that season. But it just felt different, didn't it? Even though, can you imagine if we were going to the Premier League now with that squad that we had? I mean, we'd be terrified, wouldn't we? Absolutely terrified.
We would, but the difference I will say on that is that we did spend in that first season. And we could spend because we hadn't spent big before. We're still feeling the pinch now because of what we spent under Jesse Marsh in the last Premier League season. That's where the most of the damage comes from. We've spent a bit of money over the last two championship seasons, but we've not spent outside of our incomings through transfers. So I think you've got a point. But I also think we need to remember how much we did spend with, Diego Llorente, Robin Koch, Rafinha. Yeah. There were players throughout that squad. Jack Harrison again on loan, Rodrigo, 30 million quid straight away for Rodrigo. So there were big signings, and in season one it worked all right. Like we added additions nicely to the squad that had got us where we got to. So yeah, I think we would have found ourselves in the same situation now, probably spending the similar kind of money. The landscape's different and the rules have become tighter, so I think you've got a point. I also think that there's some sort of different. We are going into the Premier League with, I think, more Premier League players than we had in that side. So when we got promoted, I mean, I know most of them ended up becoming Premier League players in their own right, and we all loved them, but you could have stripped through that team and be like, they're in any, like, just quickly go through it. Luke Ayling, Liam Cooper, Alioski, Stuart Dallas, Mateus Click, Patrick Bamford, Jack Harrison, Helder Costa. Like, I mean, none of them. You wouldn't have said any of them, and they did it. They did it again because of the tactic, the structure, the feeling, the momentum, all the things that we've just spoken about. So, but it is mad interesting. I mean, the only player out of that side that I would have said that were ready for the Premier League was Ben White, and we ended up not having him. So, they all did it, didn't they? So
they did. No, they did. They did us proud, and we're going to get into specific links with specific players, but I'm interested to look at how we're trying to squad build going into the Premier League, because the names we're linked with Premier League experience, which we went into the Premier League last time. We signed, like, as you've mentioned, Robin Koch, Diego Llorente, Rafinha and Rodrigo. No Premier League experience, varying ages there. Rafinha, obviously amazing from day dot, amazing for the 2 seasons, kept us up single-handedly. The second season, Rodrigo, very hit and miss, had a good final season, but was pretty underwhelming for the first 2. Llorente ended up being a disaster. Robin Koch at times looked really good, and you thought this is a really good defender, but by the end just looked absolutely shot. And it you wonder, because the 49ers were in the background then, they've watched this, and now we're linked with Callum Wilson, and like you say, James Milner, and there's all these links of like these experienced kind of Premier League veterans almost. And how vital is it that we actually do that? A player like Thomas Souček, for example, loads of Premier League appearances, loads of experience, week in, week out. He knows what it's about. There's nothing to fear. There's nothing to learn. He's done it all and seen it all. Do you think that is the right strategy to go, where you want a kind of mix of that, But also, you know, you want your exciting kind of up and comers. You know, I mean, the guy Promised David, you know, who on paper, you know, 22 goals in 40 appearances. You know, it sounds like, you know, one of those kind of Brighton type signings, doesn't it? I think they're in for him as well, actually. But
they're Brighton's feeder club. They've got a connection.
Yeah,
So,
done it.
maybe.
Do you know what I mean? It's that kind of thing of, it looks as if, are we maybe going to approach it differently this time? It's like, right, no, we got to supplement this squad with Premier League proven experience if we can get those clever deals. But, you know, where's that balance between, okay, like Lou says, you don't want to end up like Dad's Army.
Yeah.
Where's that balance? How you know, what's the best route?
I think season 2, season 3, if we get there, you can go for some of these diamond in the rough potential, you know, 20 million becoming 60 million kind of players. In season 1, I think you've got to be really careful, because if you hinge your destiny on them, the likelihood is it'll go wrong, and you're then left in a situation where you're getting relegated and you're rebuilding and you're going again and all the rest of it. So I'm really excited. I said this earlier. I'm really excited by the prospect of signing some of these kind of more. Sorry, it happens every week. This. I'm excited by some of these.
That sounded like it was in the room. How loud was it? How the hell did that come through like that?
Good God. I'm really excited by some of these kind of Premier League stalwart signings. I mean, Thomas Souček would be a monster signing, wouldn't it? It'd be an absolute monster signing. You know, I know James Milner's a bit of a romantic signing because of the Leeds connection and all the rest of it. But that signing excites me. Callum Wilson doesn't, just because of the injury record that's attached to him, and we need to have players on the pitch. I think that's going to be massively vital. So okay, get your cornetto, Enzio. Okay. So yeah, it's thrown me a little bit, but yeah, the kind of diamonds in the rough signings, I think we need a couple of them. I would like the way that I would like to see it is one statement signing, one statement signing. And I'm not sure who that will be, you know, but I'm trying to think of one off the top. But like a Rafinha, or you know, somebody that's prepared to come to Leeds, given the project. You know, maybe Buendia might be that signing. If we can, if we knew Buendia would be fully fit for all 38 games, and we told 15 million quid, what a statement signing! I'd be buzzing with that.
Yeah.
You know, and then a James McAtee, that kind of signing would excite me. And then padded out with maybe one or two of these risky signings, and then the rest being Premier League ready to go. Free transfers. I think it'd be a real smart sign. You know, Ben Mee.
I was just going to say Ben Mee. I mean, what, you know,
Ben Mee makes sense. It just makes so much sense. You know, I was looking at the release list earlier. Christian Eriksen. You know, a lot of people won't like that because of the Manchester United link. Makes a lot of sense. It's a smart signing. You know, the quality that he possesses, even at the stage that he's at now. We don't have that. We don't have any Premier League now. So all, I mean, you're looking through this squad, and the you know, take Patrick Bamford out, who obviously made quite a number of appearances for us in the Premier League, and even that's, you know, I'm clutching at straws a little bit for Premier League experience there. We have got very, very few Premier League experienced players. Ethan Ampadu made a handful of appearances for Sheffield United and Chelsea. You know, who else? Nonto in the relegation season, like.
Few and far between, isn't it?
Very few and far between, mate. Very few. Jaden Bogle relegated with Sheffield United. You know, so like when you're looking at a Decore at Everton,
who's just leaving, isn't he? He's leaving, isn't he?
Yeah, it makes
a lot of
so
good free
sense.
options, isn't there? A lot of good coming up on free, isn't there? There's like, it seems to be
Tariq Lamptey at Brighton. I mean, I think he'll end up at a big club.
Kyle Walker-Peters.
I'd take him. Can play both sides, makes again a lot of sense. And just because he got relegated with Southampton, I mean, he had years of playing for Southampton in the Premier League before they first got relegated. He's a Premier League player. If he doesn't come to our Leeds, he will end up as part of a squad at Villa or Everton, or you know, I mean, any club outside of the top four. I think I could even see Kyle Walker-Peters being a backup option at Newcastle.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So yeah, these signings make a lot of sense. A lot of sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's get into some of the links then. I mean, the one who was on the thumbnail, it seemed to be like growing momentum. I was, you're hearing all these different things, aren't you? It's nearly done. It's not nearly done, and I think it might be a little bit further away than what was first thought. But Tsimikas at Liverpool, left back. Obviously, we don't know what's happening with Firpo yet. Experience 29. Obviously, he's been back up to Andy Robertson at Liverpool. Didn't have a great game against Brighton, I must say, last night. But Liverpool are, I think they're on the beach a little bit, aren't they, at the moment? But that kind of level, I mean, what someone like him, what would you make of that? Would that fit the criteria?
I mean, it's a statement signing in terms of the name.
Yeah.
My worry with Tsimikas is the price. I don't want to see us spending 20 million on him.
No.
And where do Liverpool? Because I think he's got a couple of years left on his contract. Like, where does that sit? And then is he going to be our starting left back with or without Firpo? Is he going to be first choice? And if Firpo leaves, we're going to need two. So then, are we going to sign better than Tsimikas as a second option? I don't know. I feel a bit weird about it. Like, I think he's a good player. I just don't know if he's exactly what we need. I think we could probably do a bit better. I don't know. It's difficult because I don't know the value. If you're talking 7 million quid of our PSR budget, I'm all right with that. I think that makes a lot of sense. If you're talking near 20 million, I'd be really worried about that. Because I think that's what you're reading, innit? About 15 to 20 million. I just think it's too much. So, yeah, whereas, again, I hate sounding like this, old Sam Allardyce kind of, mentality, but Aaron Cresswell's available on a free.
Yeah.
If you're signing Junior Firpo to another contract and he stays, then surely Aaron Cresswell on a free would make more sense. Set piece taker, more defensively apt, Premier League experience, played year in, year out for West Ham. Surely that would make more sense. So then you can go and spend the 20, 30 million that you maybe need in the 9 or the 10 or a centre back or a keeper. Them positions are probably a little bit more crucial. So I don't know, it's a fine balance one. I'm if he signs, I'll be excited by it, but right now I'm a bit reserved.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, Swamp Dog's got a good one here. Kevin De Bruyne on a free.
Lou mentioned him.
Yeah, he did.
And Lou was deadly serious. And I was like, surely he goes to the MLS or Saudi or something, or surely Barcelona would take him. Yeah, I mean, any club in the world would want De Bruyne, but he was dead serious that we could go out and make a bit of a statement, go and offer the money that we need to and get Kevin De Bruyne. And I was like, no, surely not.
No, well, I mean, I've got to say, he did a few nice bits and pieces in the final, but I thought it was pretty poor, to be honest, overall in that.
His legs have gone a bit on there.
Legs have gone. I mean, is he 34 now? 33, 34? So
yeah, I don't know exactly, but he's had a lot of injuries, hasn't he?
He's had a lot of injuries, but yeah, I feel like if Leeds can put some of these together and get that right blend, I agree with you. Actually, I like the idea of this blending, this Premier League experience, but then you get maybe that diamond in the rough kind of thing who's going to potentially explode. I think that's the kind of right way to go. I mean, Doucouré, though, it's come out, he's leaving Everton, vastly experienced midfielder. I mean, I've even seen Max Aarons doing the rounds again. That's come back round.
I've seen that, yeah. I mean, that's a signing that, again, would make a lot of sense. I don't think he's had a great loan spell. He has been somewhere on loan. I can't remember where.
It's not done too well, has it?
No, but it'd make a lot of sense. I've just brought up that release list. I'm not going to go through them all because, there's quite a lot. But just quickly flicking through these names, and again, I'm talking about squad options here. Kenny Tete at Fulham, can play both fullbacks. Tom Cairney won't be a bad option. Again, squad option. Ben Davis at Spurs. I know we got linked with him last season. Kurt Zouma at West Ham.
Do you know what? I saw that. I was wondering about it. Yeah.
Kurt Zouma would make a lot of sense. Nelson Semedo, I've seen that we've been linked with him from Wolves. Again, can play both fullbacks, predominantly a right back. Christian Eriksen I mentioned earlier. You know, there's some smart moves on here that would make a lot of sense for Leeds. Nathaniel Klein, and I'd probably a bit past it now there, but yeah, there's some smart ones. What about Neil Maupay? Neil Maupay would be
That's all. Surely not. Obviously, one that's kind of rumbling on. I think there has been a little bit of movement. Is Manor Solomon, obviously, and you know, I've got to say it's making me laugh. Like watching Leeds, like certain Leeds fans pine after, hoping he signs when 12 months ago they didn't even want him in the starting 11. We were pretty consistent though, Jay, especially yourself, you know, backing him up. And now we're desperate for him. Now we want him, and it looks as if the Marseille move's not going to happen. For potentially political reasons. So hopefully it opens the door. I think the fee is still only saying about 17 million. And it just makes sense from so many points of view, doesn't it? And I'm hoping kind of the parade has helped kind of seal the deal almost. It's like, look what look what you're joining. Because I mean, the thing with Leeds is as well, it's like, if you show us anything as fans, you know, you've got us for life. I mean, look how many former players, you know, come back, you know, and you know, regaling times of even ones that put transfer requests in. And at the time, we're trying to get out of the club, but you know, they kind of come to realise that loyalty and that support. It's pretty special, you know. So you know, if we can get him over the line, I'm hoping he's kind of being convinced of it. I'm sure in his mind at the start it was a 1-year thing, get his fitness and form back. You know, he was convinced by his other half to make the move to Leeds, but I'm hoping it's won over. Does it depend on tomorrow's final though? Because you know, if Postecoglou gets sacked, for example, does it then change again in terms of potentially a new manager at Spurs who might fancy him? And does he hang on and hold on a bit, or you know, who knows there?
Maybe. I mean, there's definitely a conversation around that because, you know, I made the point to you a couple of weeks ago about Solomon and Rodon. If they'd have both been kept at Spurs this season, they'd have both played nearly every week, especially Rodon, because they didn't have any centre-backs. Yeah. So, you know, Solomon has had a hell of a season. I mean, we all knew, anybody that kind of, I say we all, that's not true. Anybody that kind of had their head out of their asses could instantly see that Manor Solomon was a Premier League player. And they'd have known that from before he even kicked a ball for Leeds United. If they actually stop being pretend tacticos and actually watch football, they know. So, you know, he's a baller. The guy's an absolute baller. Now, if he'd have signed on loan for Burnley, Sheffield United or Sunderland, you know, the other 3 promoted clubs, or potentially 3 promoted, you know, so Sheffield United, Sunderland, there'd be no chance that Manor Solomon would be signing for them. There's just no chance on the back of a loan, because this is where our status as a sizable club comes in, and the stardust and the pull of Leeds United can still attract somebody like Manor Solomon, who is ultimately linked with Champions League football teams. We can still do that because of what we did with him, for him last season, and the imprint that we've now had on him. And we still might not get it over the line, but the fact that it's still even in conversation tells you where we kind of stand. Now, as for Marseille, I mean, the fact that they are citing political reasons for not making this signing, yet they were prepared to sign, I'm not going to say his name, but we all know who. It's just bizarre to me. It's madness. And it's the same reason that some of our moron fans that we've got within the fan base were so quick to shoot him down at the beginning of the season. It's pathetic. It's honestly, but it's mind-blowing to me. So anyway, that aside, him as a footballer, you know, he's exactly what we need to sprinkle that bit of stardust on keeping us up next season. He would be the potential difference maker in keeping us up or not. He's that good when he's fully at it. You know, we've seen it, and we've seen it at Premier League level as well. Like, people are just quick to erase what he did at Fulham out of existence for some reason. Like, he's a baller. He's an absolute baller.
Interesting to note, Leeds United have released a YouTube compilation of all his assists. Interesting behaviour for a.
I think it'll happen. I think it's going to happen.
I'm inching to it, and that's a big kind of headache solved in a way, isn't it? Because then, you know, who've we got out there? So we've got you got your 4 wingers, haven't you? You've got your 4 there, haven't you? Really, to mix and match, and that's a strong setup. Let's talk about some of the potential outgoings then, and what we're doing. Obviously, there's a big elephant in the room, and it's called Jack Harrison. You know, I was hoping Angus Kinnear going to Everton, he could have maybe done us a favour. I wondered if there was going to be a little bit of a PSR accounting doing clubs selling each other players, we get Beto or they get Jack Harrison or something like that. I wondered if there could be something going on like that. For me, got to get rid of this guy. Got to get rid of Jack Harrison. It's, hopefully it can be a permanent. Hopefully we can get a fee. But if it has to be a loan, I just don't want to see him in this Leeds squad. I know some fans are like, yeah, but it's Premier League. Look at his stats. Look at he's honestly, he's so bad. He has not developed one iota since the moment Bielsa was sacked. He has just gone backwards. He's about 28 now. I just do not want to see this guy at the football club anymore. And I don't think he would have any positive benefit to this club. I really don't. And hopefully there's someone out there that will, pull the trigger and actually want to sign. God knows who and God knows why. Because I don't understand it.
Any fan that would be prepared to accept him back in surely must have been like welcoming Brendan Aronson on a red carpet.
Absolutely.
Jack Harrison for me is the worst of the worst.
Yeah.
He is the worst of the worst. The what's transpired, the mum videos, the way that he behaved and conducted himself upon leaving, and the statement that he put out, all of it was just stunk. Awful. Not to mention the fact that I was never that enamoured by him anyway, during his time at Leeds and the way that he carried himself, his hot and cold streaks, and, we needed him in that final season. And don't get me wrong, like the club at the time will have been partly responsible for this as well. Don't forget, we had him down at Leicester, ready to go. Then we brought him back and all the rest that came with that. So, but yeah, I don't want to see Jack Harrison anywhere near a Premier League squad. Again, coming back to that mentality and the kind of feeling around it, that's there's no positive in that. He comes back into a harmonious dressing room as a bit of a negative kind of feel. The fans ultimately are not going to accept him back in. There'd be a period of time in which there'd be a transition in that. Like, I'm not about it at all. Now, the benefit where Jack Harrison's concerned is that we've paid off all of the amortization with him. So his actual base value is 2.7 million. Now, he is worth more than 2.7 million, thankfully. He's probably worth double digits, 10 million-ish, I reckon, is what you would probably
contract, hasn't he? He's got that bloody long contract, hasn't he, that he signed before.
Yeah, but I mean, that doesn't really mean too much in terms of potentially then coming to an agreement on a sale. That would only really matter that much if we were then driving a hard bargain because of it. That'd be on Leeds to then not be too greedy. Once they might, if another player was in this situation and they have 4 years left on the deal, you might be looking at 25 million. But if we're happy to take 10 on the back of the fact that it would cook the books to 8 million quid profit, I think we'd probably make peace with the fact that it's best all round. I think Everton, from what I'm hearing, are gonna be interested. I think Burnley could make a good signing with him. I think as much as I don't like him, I can imagine that he would suit Burnley and Scott Parker and whipping balls into the box and all the rest of it. He has got some qualities. His left foot is decent. He can deliver a ball. So yeah, maybe them, maybe like I say, maybe Everton get that deal done.
Isn't it weird how he didn't connect with Leeds at all, really? Because I remember kind of, if you ever saw him score a goal or just his general kind of demeanour, he never seemed that buzzed to actually be at Leeds. It always seemed a little bit like he wasn't quite connected like Click and all these other guys. He just never seemed to have that level of connection with Leeds ever.
I just think he's a weird guy. I just think he's a bit of a strange cookie.
Yeah.
I know that sounds really weird, but there is a person under there, and I just think he's just a bit of an odd cookie. Like, I had a certain amount of sympathy for him. I remember watching the interview in between season 1 and 2, I think it was, or season 2 or 3 of the Premier League. I can't remember. It was in between one of them, and he was talking about getting a coach for his mentality. He struggled with confidence, and I did feel a certain sense of not pity, I guess, but empathy for the way that he kind of was big enough to come out and say that. And I think he has worked on himself. I mean, bear in mind his journey within football is a bit odd as well. The MLS and coming over here and acclimatizing. And ultimately, he's a Premier League player now. He's played 5 straight seasons at Premier League level, and he's played a lot of Premier League games. So I think he has something to offer for the right manager and club, but I just don't think that's ours. And I definitely don't want to see him back after everything that's gone on. Too much water under the bridge with him.
Yeah. As Enzio says here, Kinnear was not that complimentary on Harrison on the square ball, so be interested to see how he gets on at Everton now. If he
won't want to walk back in these doors, mate.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's true, actually. Yeah, I remember. So, yeah, that'd be a bit of an awkward, and Kinnear's probably like, nope, we're not signing.
Yeah.
No chance. Jason, before we sign off then, is there any other players we're linked with or anything else you want to get off your mind whilst we're having a good old chinwag about Leeds?
Yeah, no, it's good to be to catch him back up on Leeds. It's just nice to just talk it, innit? And just get to keep on feeling it. I mean, we've covered off a lot of the potential links and names. I think I'm interested to see what starts happening when we hear about outgoings. We haven't heard a single outgoing as of yet, which is fair. You know, like the players have all gone on holiday, and we're going to start hearing bits and pieces. But you know, Meslier, Pascal, we might even see a potential move for somebody a little bit more mainstay that we don't want to see leave. I think of Dan James. I think of Al Tanaka. You know, these ones that would potentially cook us books a bit. Mateo Joseph. I wouldn't be unhappy about that one, by the way. I think that'd make a lot of sense. But I think there is some value within our squad that we're going to have to consider potentially moving on to do what we want to do in the window. Maybe less so now that the 120 million's come in. But yeah, it's gonna be an interesting one. You know, Joe Rothwell. I'm interested to see what happens with him on the next move. I don't think it'll be Leeds, but I'll be interested to know what it is. I saw his holiday pictures coming out on one social media, and he was with another couple of couples and his missus, and I just thought that they're around at dinner talking about where he's going and what the next situation. I just love to be I love all that kind of stuff. I love the kind of cinema around football, you know, and signings and all the rest of it. So I'm just super stoked, man. I'm just super gassed that we get to enjoy this and see what comes next, really.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. And myself and Jason will be here throughout the summer. And, you know, if there's breaking news, we'll be there. We'll be doing shows like this where we just chew the fat about it, really. And also some shorter videos as well. Get some content out to make sure we're keeping our finger on the pulse. But if you've watched along, if you've been commenting on the video, thank you so much. We really appreciate it. And if you're watching again later, do get comments in. What do you think about the transfer room, or what do you think about everything we've talked about as well? Let us know your thoughts and feelings. Get subscribed to the video as well, and also make sure you're liking it as well. I've been Stephen Browne. Joining me for this episode has been Jason Boocker. Jason, thank you very much, mate.
Thank you, mate.
And we will see you all again soon. Thank you very much for watching. Bye-bye.